When is ready, so I can able to go on.
Yeah. Yeah, we good to go. Now you can start. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you so much for everyone for spending your time and attending this session. And I have been part of the couple of sessions and attended, and great content shared by other speakers. And hopefully by till end of the day that you have a lot of other new content that you can able to view and able to learn from it, right? So there are a lot of updates are coming, and especially in the space of cloud, you will definitely this cloud submit security submit definitely would be useful for everyone. Okay, with that, let me begin and go. I'm Faisal. I'm working in Microsoft last 6 years, and mainly focusing on networking and also Azure infrastructure specialist. So with that, let me move on. So this is the virtual event, and then you have a couple of questions to be asked. At the end of the day, you have a great prizes to be won, right? There is actually is the support for cause, or give whatever you can provide or give and a donation. Please feel free to provide a donation so that they can able to support the wonderful organization and people to move forward. And the any small change thing that you are going to provide would definitely help this organization. So just a simple, a profile about me. I'm actually in this industry for last 25 years and worked in various technology. And today also still I'm working in a few variety of technology here. And one of the thing is actually, if you notice, I'm cut across from the cloud native to infrastructure, right? And those things that I'm specializing at the moment, and mainly is security, right? So anything that come across cloud native or security, I'm part of it. Now, if we look at this, right, there's the final architecture that we are going to see end of the session, right? I'm going to build this entire slide one by one, but you are seeing this slide as a end result, right? This is the end result that you will be going to get it by end of the session. When we go through this, basically, we will be going through, various Azure services, mainly, virtual network security group, route table, virtual machine, private DNS, private endpoint, storage account, firewall policy, firewall manager, Bastion, log analytic, network watcher, DDoS plan, and also a monitoring, log analytic, so on. So there are very many products that we will be going through around this entire slide. So without further, let me begin with the first challenge here. If that's the architecture. People can unmute, and if you know the response, you can straight away tell me, or you can start type it in the chat window. I just want to make it more interactive because this is a more what you called session that where you have things to do. So I want more interactive, right? Can you find a security issue on this specific architecture that you use? A very simple architecture. Anyone can tell me?
It's a three-tier architecture.
So 3-tier architecture, but there is a security issue on this specific architecture.
Okay, so the workloads are not segregated.
It's already segregated by web and app DB subnet.
There is no NSG rule, I think, for
Yeah,
any
so when I say segregation
purpose.
between the subnet, there are no, dividing of the network traffic against each workload.
Fantastic. So now if you put a network security group, basically that you are adding a network security group at subnet level, so that you can be able to filter the segregation of the subnets, right? So let's say there is a rule that comes across saying that, okay, any thing that is you want to deploy the virtual machine here in this, especially on the database subnet, should not have an internet connection, right? How do you secure that? Basically, you need to have an NSG. Under the NSG, you will be going through, something like this. Let me move on to the demo part, and I will show you what I mean to, right? So basically, you'll be going into one of the security group, and taking the security group and saying that if you don't want the internet, and you will be, taking the specific security group and actually adding a rule to that, right? So that is what you will be doing that. Okay, where if I take one security group here, I can go to DB security group. Then I can go to outbound rule. Under the outbound rule, I can quickly go and add a internet service tag is equal to destination is service tag, and internet, and the thing is actually is star and deny. Basically, what I'm trying to do here, I'm using a service tag called internet to deny entire traffic. So in that way, I'm able to very easily secure this traffic for each and every segment that we are talking about here, right? Similarly, if I don't want web to communicate directly to database subnet, I will be using the network security group to secure it. So that's a simple concept of basic security. Now let's move on to this, right? I have VNet 1 and I have VNet 2, right? And these two VNets need to communicate each other. Is what are the options that I have to communicate?
The simple one is VNet peering.
Okay, cool. That's what I expected as well. So the one is the VNet peering. Otherwise, you can have a, because it's only just two VNet. It's the only way is easy to do it a VNet peering, right? You peer the two VNet, you're done with go to the next step, right? Now let's move on to this. So I have a three VNet, VNet 1, VNet 2, VNet 3. Okay, so the challenge is when I try to VNet peering between these two, right? From VNet 1, VNet 2, VNet 3, I want to peer VNet 2 and 3. Basically, these are the IP address I have, and I'm trying to peer that VNet. Okay, so sorry, I didn't remove this here. Make it all of them 0. Okay, so if you look at this, right, I'm not able to peer VNet 3 and 1. Any reason, Any specific reason why we are not able to peer this? We can peer this VNet 1 to 2, 2 can talk to 3, but 3 cannot go to 1.
See, you do not have a CID different.
So which is what we call IP conflict, basically, right? Once you have IP conflict, you cannot have a peering because each IP should be unique in the VNet address space. If you do not have, if you have overlapping of address space, definitely you cannot able to peer it. Okay, these are little things that you need to take care when you're actually designing your networking when you're going with something else, right? Now let's move on. There are actually a various way of giving connectivities, right? One of the connectivity what we talk about hub and spoke. So hub can talk to spoke, right? Or spoke can talk to hub, and then it will go through that. Then the mesh. Mesh is actually it's actually communicated to one and also one to many as well. Then there are also options called hub and spoke with a direct connectivity between spokes as well, which means this is a hub and spoke architecture, but at the same time, the spoke can talk to another spoke as well, right? So this is what we called actually is hub and spoke architecture. In general VNet peering concept. In that, right? So the one of the thing is if you use a VNet peering, basically it's gonna provide you a better performance and also provide a low latency in terms of your connectivity perspective. Recently, we have introduced a new concept called Azure Virtual Network Manager. In Azure Network Virtual Manager, basically is you want to scale, right? Example, you want to do a hub and spoke. Okay, when you want to do a hub and spoke, but the spoke can come anytime, the spoke can go anytime. Same thing, mesh can come anytime, can go anytime. But you want to scale, faster without having any admin activity or anything. So for that, what we have created a new concept called, connectivity. Okay, so basically the connectivity help you to connect the thing using the policy base. You define a policy, then based on the policy, it will able to connect you to the specific hub and spoke or mesh based on your thing. It will help you to connect. Okay, so this is the new way of doing it as well, so that you don't need to worry about each network pops up. It need to connect. You don't need to worry about it. Those things automatically taken care. So if you look at this, right, what is the network concept that we use here? Do you any idea? Is it a hub and spoke? Is it a mesh, or hub and spoke and plus mesh?
It's a mess.
Mesh. Okay, so it's a mesh actually framework. We do not use hub and spoke. Okay, now let's move on to the next. Okay, let's look at this architecture, right? So this architecture is actually the connecting to your peering. Previously you see the peering, it's happened by a mesh peering, and now your security team came into picture and you have deployed this workload. It's working very well, and suddenly your security team came in and say that, hey, look at I've been reviewing your architecture, and the architecture is actually communicating between the VNets. We don't allow spoke to spoke VNet communication. All communication need to go through hub VNet. Okay, so if that is a case happen, right? Basically, what you need to do, you need to deploy a new virtual network called hub. In that, you will be actually connecting to all you are peering to an hub network. Okay, so that all the connection can come to can come to hub, 2 can come to hub, 3 can come to hub, but 3 cannot talk to 2. 2 cannot talk to 1. Okay, if that is the need, they need to go through the hub. Then there will be a transit gateway. The transit gateway will route the traffic to those, right? Is there any question here before we move on to next level? Okay.
Just one question. How to use the transit gateway, and what are the use cases that we need to use it?
So when you have actually, for example, right, if you want to connect to on-prem, okay, or you want to connect to from number spoke 3 to and spoke 2, then this don't have a VNet peering. You cannot connect, right? Then you will be using the transit gateway to transit your traffic from 3 to 2 via hub, basically. That's a one. The second is actually you want to go to on-prem, which is your data center, then you will also use that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, let's move on, start build one by one, right? So now you have a network already, okay? But none of this IP address, okay, none of this actually have a public IP, okay? So what is actually your development team asking? Hey, I would like to RDP to network, right? VNet 1, 2, 3, all right? All the VMs that I want to RDP. And, can you assign a IP address to this public IP address to these VM and open RDP port for me? Basically, can be done. We can do it in the NSG, right? You can go to NSG, you can easily do that as well. So there is no doubt on that, right? So you can go to your NSG, then you can click inbound, then you can go here and say that, okay, destination, any, then you can say that custom port is RDP, then you can say allow. Then basically it will allow the traffic to your inbound. Okay, so this is some simple, right? Can we do that?
I think we should use Bastion in that case.
Okay, So the thing is actually why we are not recommending this specific method, even though the method is exist and everybody long term, lot of time people are start use it. But one of the things we discover is actually the moment you open RDP port in cloud, within less than 5 minutes, people get hacked or attacked. Okay, so it's not a secure way to open or recommended way to open RDP port in NSG. So the only way you can, the one of the way that we are suggesting actually use the Bastion host. So when you use the Bastion host, basically you can do RDP, you can do SSS connectivity to your networks. And this is a more secure way, and you have a single point of entry to your network instead of again multi-point of entry to your network. Okay, so now let's look at my Bastion host actually in the hub. Okay, but can I go to all the 3 subnet? Okay, example, if I go to my portal and I'm going to my spoke 1, okay, then I'm right click I'm going to my VM here, because this is my spoke VM, directly going to my spoke VM. If you notice, I'm not going to my Bastion, right? I'm going to my spoke VM, and I'm typing is actually my username, right? Then I'm typing my password. Now, if you'll notice, it's very quickly actually logging into my network, and I'm able to access my entire VM. Okay. Then if I go to my spoke 3, basically is my spoke 3, then I can go and right click my spoke 3 VM. Then I can also Bastion to that. All right. To me is I didn't open anything, right? In my network, I don't put a hole off into my NSG or any other places. Basically, I just come here and I'm able to log into my specific node that I want to go, right? In this way, it's actually, if you look at my entire thing, it's actually very secure to host my Bastion host in the hub instead of having it in every spoke. So it become my jump host kind of concept, and I'm able to go whichever network that I want to go. If there is a network that is actually is not available, in the entire thing, not peered to this specific hub network, then I'm not able to go, because you need to have a peering. Without peering, you cannot go to these networks, right? So that's where the hub and spoke on. Always you need to peer your spoke network to hub. Okay. Now let's move on. Now, this is one of the things, right? You are looking at it here. If you look at this, right? So if I go to my spoke 2 or spoke 3, basically is I can go to just now the VM that actually I logged in, right? To my spoke 3, then I can go to any website that I want to, right? I can go here and I can say that, google.com, then I can say Cricinfo, whatever it is, right? Any cricket match that I want to watch, I can go ahead and do that, right? So it's quite easy for me to go and do the stuff here. Okay, so basically I can browse any website that I want to browse. Sorry, this is spoke 0, so I need to be spoke 3. Sorry. So if I go here and ESPN Cricinfo, then it takes me to ESPN Cricinfo, then I can go. Right. So the challenge is actually, if you look at this, right, it's going very good, because my connectivity is directly going to the internet. So the thing is actually all the outgoing, the one that VNet 1 that I hosted all my traffic here is very secure application. Okay. So in this application, my security team says that, hey, look at, you are not allowed to go directly to internet. you should route your traffic to, something so that we can able to inspect your traffic before it goes to internet. We will allow you to do the same thing, but we need you to go through, secure channel. So is there any option that you think that we can use?
We can redirect the traffic to a particular port, or what is called force tunneling.
Post tunneling. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay, great. So let's see, right? So this is what there actually is there right now. So they say that my secure workload is running here. All traffic should go through via hub traffic. All traffic must be inspected. Only allowed traffic should go to internet. Okay, this is what my security team says that. Then what I need to do, I need to introduce the concept called route table. Okay, basically anything that is actually I'm trying to do in this subnets, I'm using the UDR, right? User defined routes. So in my user defined routes, I'm going to say that, look at this. I am going to do routing to from VM. I'm going to route a traffic to Azure Firewall. My Azure Firewall will do the inspect of the traffic. Then the firewall will route traffic to my internet, basically. All right. So this is a concept that we actually need to be clear. Basically, any traffic that any of this network will route to Azure Firewall. So example, okay, if you look at this, right, let me go to the portal. I'll show you how it looks like. So if I go to my hub, right, basically this is my hub network. This in my hub network that you can see here, I have deployed the firewall in my hub network. Okay. In the hub network, I have an IP address called 1090.3.4. This is the IP address of my firewall. Okay. Now, if I come to this spoke network, which is my spoke one, which I want to secure, right? Basically. So I'm coming to my spoke network and I'm going into my network subnet, which is all the subnet that I exist. So I'm going to my specific subnet called app subnet. Then in app subnet, we can see that there are two things, right? If I click my security group, basically my security group do not have any much greater rules. It actually has everything. It sends and everything out, right? Then if I look at my route table, that's where the magic is happening. In my route table that you see here, any traffic that has become a 0.0000/0, it need to go to a virtual appliance. In this case, virtual appliance is actually my firewall 10.90.3.4. Basically, if I go and look at my effective route says here, right? It says that for this specific network, these are my effective routes. Okay, so you can see that my route is actually internet become an invalid here. And all the route actually is going to my virtual appliance, which is my firewall. Okay, so anything that I am trying to communicate from this spoke 0 VM, if I type google.com, it doesn't go through. But if I type, yahoo.com, it can go. I really don't understand. I said no communication can go, right? Or actually specific communication go, right? So that's where what we did actually, if you look at here, that's where the network rules is coming into picture. If I go to my hub, in my hub, I can go to my ICS, the network policy, basically in my application policy. If you look at this policy, basically what I'm trying to say that, okay, these are the three websites I'm allowing out. So if I go to my, my rules collection, under my root collection, and if I click my application rule, you can see that I'm allowing this particular traffic out from my server. Anything other than this will not go to internet. Basically, that is what happening. If I type Google, it doesn't go. The reason is those traffic is actually not allowed to go outside. Okay, only the specific traffic that we allowed, only those things are able to go outside. Okay, so with that, right, I'm able to fulfill all this condition that they have been given to me, saying that all traffic from VNet 1 should go and do an inspection and able to go through this, or I can able to, to directly if it's my VNet 2 or 3. Okay. Is there any question before we move on to next concept?
Can we put the restriction into the firewall itself instead of the NSG?
No, I didn't put in NSG. No rules in the NSG.
Okay.
All the rules are in firewall. The
Okay,
one that
okay.
I just now show you.
Mhm.
So the rules is actually here is in firewall. These are the firewall policies.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mhm.
no rules in NSG.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you need to change the routing table manually
Yes.
to routes? Okay.
Yes, you need to have you need to go to your route table and you need to add a route, right? So this is the route that you need to add so that it can able to take, because you are forcing this entire route to virtual appliance. So basically you are telling, hey, person A asking this, which is your VM, right? This one. Person A is asking, hey, this guy is asking me to go to Google. Where do I go? Then it will go hit is the first hop is actually your NSG.
Mhm.
Okay, it will go to your NSG. Then NSG will say, to me, I don't have any issue because I can throw everything out,
Okay.
right? Because internet is out, I can throw everything out. Then it takes that. Then the next priority is actually the first priority comes always your user defined route. Once you
Mhm.
have a user defined route, that get a higher priority because it's above the NSG. Then it look at no, you are not allowed to go out, man, because been all the 000/32 should go to virtual appliance.
Mhm.
Where is the virtual appliance? The virtual appliance is the firewall sitting in this hub network, because this is in the different network, but it's sitting in the hub network. Then when go here, then this guy will actually go and start investigating the traffic through the firewall rules. The rules will actually look at one by one and say that, okay, I am able to go through or this or not. If then it will go out, otherwise it will block itself.
Excellent. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So now let's move on. So now not only that, right? The firewall actually able to do a TLS inspection. If you have a certificate that you want to do an inspection of that, you can able to do. Then there is also IDPS, right? Also you can do the URL filtering or the web category, right? The URL filtering, just now what I demonstrated. The web category is basically you don't want employee to use, like a gaming website or actually a social media website when they are in work. You can also go and filter that in the web categories as well. Right. So those traffic also you can filter it. So all of them you can able to secure using the Azure Firewall. There is one more method is available. If you are not using Azure Firewall, you are using any third-party, firewall like Barracuda, Palo Alto, or actually Checkpoint, all this firewall. Also, you will be using the same method. You will be using route table to route to your firewall. The firewall will take it. That's another method. There's a one more method also available, which is actually you will be using your on-prem proxy server. Basically, you will ingest the proxy in your virtual network itself, which is a VM itself. Then the VM will actually look at it and route the traffic directly to your on-prem network, which is the proxy. Then proxy will validate and send the traffic out. Okay, there's few methods to do, but since this is an Azure session, I'm using Azure Firewall to route it. Okay, so this is another concept. Now, let's jump into a PaaS communication. So one of the thing is here, right? So there is a storage account for me here. Okay, this storage account is in a PaaS service, right? So the security team actually somehow found out that, okay, hey, look at, when you try to access the storage account through your virtual machine, okay, that is actually going through over internet. Okay, what does it mean? Let's see the demo. Okay, so if I take this screen, right, sorry. If I take the screen, right, if I go to one of the network, which is actually is my spoke 3, I think my spoke 3 is here, right? So if I go and do, IP ping, or actually is a dev storage, right? So basically I can go and say NS lookup. This is my storage account, okay? So when I take my storage account, basically it's give me a public address, okay? The security team came and say, no, this traffic is going over internet. This should go only in Microsoft backbone network. It shouldn't allow to go over the internet. It is a big risk for the company. You should make sure that it is actually going via, inside your network, right? That's a security loophole they found out. Now they're asking us to fix, how do we fix this? Any idea?
NSG rule.
Service endpoint.
Okay, NSG rule and service endpoint. Okay, so one of the thing is actually NSG it doesn't actually help you to do the communication via private network, right? Because NSG only checks who is coming in, who is going out. That's it. Doesn't matter which method that you are coming, whether you are coming internally, whether you're coming externally, it doesn't care, right? Basically, it's only look at the rules, who can come, who can go out. Here, the guy actually going out on over the public internet. Okay, so the one way to secure this is actually using the private endpoint. Okay, basically what you will be doing it, you will be deploying a private endpoint for your storage network. When you deploy a storage endpoint, private endpoint for your storage network, you need a private DNS service. Okay, so when you have a private DNS service, your VM1 can able to talk to a private DNS and able to communicate to your storage account. Okay, for example, if I take this specific VM, which is a spoke 1, and I go and do the same ping, or actually do the same the things that I just now what I did. Oh my God. Okay, so if I take let's say if I go and take this guy, you can see it gives me a 10.9.44. It's same storage account. Which storage account that you see there? Okay, here. Okay, you see spoke 01 PB storage. It's give me 20.50.100 when I access from storage number 3. But when I access from this specific network, it's give me 10.90.4.4, which means all my communication going via private endpoint. So that's how it's happening. Basically, what we are doing it actually, we are actually created a private endpoint, okay, for the item. Then we actually assign an IP address to that. Where this is sitting, this is sitting at the spoke hub network. Okay, my workload sitting on the spoke, whereas the DNS entry and the IP address come from my hub network. Okay, so it's a hub and spoke model. We are not keeping the private endpoint in the spoke. We are even bringing the private endpoint into the hub. Okay, so that I will have a single point. Okay, then I'm also having a routing So it will actually understand the local address. It actually routes to the my local services. Okay, so that's a thing that is happening at the back end. Okay, with that, let's move on. Okay, great. Now there's an issue here, right? But my 3 can go to private endpoint because I have a VNet 3 and I have VNet 2. Can they also access the storage endpoint? The private endpoint? Let's say 2. I have a 2 here. Let me go to VNet 2. Okay. I'm going to my VNet 2. Okay. I'm logging into this VNet 2. And I'm connecting to my Bastion host. And now I'm going to connect to my storage account. Okay. What IP address I will get it? If I do that, you see here, I'm getting a private IP. Right? I don't have any relationship or anything that I did for VNet 2, but I did for VNet 1 only, right? My private endpoint sits in this resource group. Nothing is sitting in this resource group if you notice. If I go to my portal, I show you my VNet, spoke group, nothing is here, no private endpoint. Whereas I have a private endpoint here. Okay, I have a NIC card for that as well. When I go to 3, same. 2 and 3 look identical. There is no difference. But when I go to my 2, I'm able to get private IP. When I go to my 3, I'm getting a public IP. Why? Any idea? Because this is actually is not able to access. I can clearly say that no way that you can able to access, but this guy can access. Why this guy can access? Because we have a peering. If the peering is here, then this guy also have a peering to this network. That's why I can use the Bastion network to log into this VM. The same thing I use the Bastion network to log into this VM, right? But this can access this private endpoint, and this cannot access this private endpoint. Any idea? Okay, let me tell you. So the thing is actually, if you look at, right? So one of the things is actually we need to look at here is called VNet link. So when you look at your DNS service, right? In each DNS service, there is a concept called the virtual network links. Basically, you are linking your virtual network to your DNS entry where it is. So because I have a link my spoke to my this particular DNS entry, it can able to resolve my DNS and tell me that I know where you are, right? Basically, it can able to resolve that and tell me. Okay, that's a very simple thing that I can do. So in that way, once you have a DNet linking, you will able to see the resource that is available in your network. Okay. Now let's take into next step, right? Now you are into network 1. Okay. This is web subnet. This is app subnet. This is data subnet. Basically, is your security team says that, okay, look at here, there is a data exfiltration possibility because this private endpoint is able to access from my app subnet, a database subnet. Okay. I don't want this to happen. because somebody can do a data exfiltration from this network to come here and take the data. Same thing, they can come from here, they can take my data. I don't want to do this because this should access only through this network. No one else can able to access it. Is there a way to do this?
IP white
Instead of
listing.
VNet, we can add subnet.
It's already there. Subnet is there. Everything is there. Subnet is there. A route table is there.
No, in the VNet link, okay, we cannot put the subnet there.
Because you cannot put the subnet.
Yeah, I think we can put the route table to deny the traffic for the private endpoint to the specific subnet. Wherever we wanted to restrict the traffic from the subnet, we can still put the route, specific custom route there.
Okay. Okay. So the thing is actually is, if you look at this, right, it's a quite recently we have introduced. Previously, this is not possible at all. Any of this one, if you have a private endpoint, the app subnet and database subnet, as long as you are in the single network, you are able to go to private endpoint, able to communicate, because your NSG do not honor the internal traffic. It only honor the external traffic. The reason actually is what you are saying here in your NSG. You are saying is actually is virtual mesh to virtual mesh when you can able to communicate basically. If you go to your network, NSG, any of the NSG, what you have ruled is actually is you have a network, virtual network allow anything. Even I add deny, it doesn't honor that. Okay, it actually doesn't honor, it will still go through the traffic to your hub or spoke. Okay, because we don't support when you have a private endpoint, we assume that all the traffic that you need to go, it will go through to your private endpoint. But we hear from customer, no, that is not the way to work. We also want to make sure that the specific subnet level, we want to have a security. So what we did recently in the Ignite, we released the functionality to support the private endpoint under NSG, which is a route table as well. So basically what you will be doing it, the new feature that you have, if you are actually coming to this specific network, okay, if I go here, right, even you see that when I do, to my service, server here, then if I go to my resource group, I go to my spoke one, I'm going to my VM2, which is actually sitting in the VM1, which is sitting on my subnet 2, which is an app subnet. Okay, in this case, I'm going to log into this, and I can log into this. When I log in, basically it tells me if I TCP ping to my specific service, then it's going to tell me no access to it, right? Because if I go and do okay, I have here. Okay, so let's say if I'm going to do a TCP ping, it says no response to me. If I do the same thing in my 0, which is this network, which is my network, right? So where is my 0? Yeah, okay. If I say basically it says that my port is open, right? And if I go here and I do the same thing in my spoke 2, then it says that port is closed or actually not able to access, no response to me. The reason for this, right? So as I mentioned to you that, we have recently introduced a new functionality in that actually what you are trying to do is if I go to my Spoke app subnet, which is my route table, in the route table, I'm saying that 10.90.4.4 next hop is none, basically. I'm taking the traffic, I'm dropping it immediately. I'm not moving further anywhere. Okay, so in that way, I can avoid data exfiltration, or actually I can able to secure none of this subnet, app subnet or DB subnet can talk to my private endpoint and access my storage account. This is within the network itself I'm talking about. Okay, not outside of the network. Okay, outside of the network, you need to disable your VNet linking, but within the subnet, we already done a VNet linking. Now you need to avoid, then you need to add a route table and the new feature for NSG that we released. Okay, now the next thing is actually is whatever traffic that I'm getting here, I need to push it to my traffic manager so that I can able to monitor my traffic and everything. Okay, basically I want to traffic, all the traffic I want to have, I can able to control it very easily. Okay, so what I did actually, I went to my network security and I actually deploy log workbooks as well. And also I have deployed all the NSG flow log. The moment I deploy my NSG actually enable NSG flow log. Okay, then I do have also firewall workbook. Basically, I can go here, start analyzing my traffic and my patterns that is going on. Okay, so you can see that firewall that I deployed, you can see that how many traffic is actually going here and what are the traffics are here, right? And what is the application rules actually that I do have in my network, and what are the denied traffic that is trying to go. Example, these are the traffics actually denied by my firewall. My server is trying to access, all of them is actually denied. Then I can see how many traffics are going, denied FQDN over a time, what is the number, and then what is the network rule perspective, how many rules that actually I had, and what are the deny that I have, right? If you have IPS and IDS is enabled, then it will tell me IPS, IDS enable. Then I can able to investigate my firewall, what are the NIC cards are there, and what is the deny rules and accepted rules, all the detail that I'm able to go through, right? I can able to filter and I can able to do many stuff. That's a one workbook. If we take another workbook called Network Security Dashboard, basically this one is actually give me the entire picture of my network security, how many private endpoint I have in my network, how many load balancer I have, what are the firewall that I have, what is how many DDoS protection plan that I have been putting it, then what is the firewall policy and public IP and all the detail, right? So if I go and start looking at each and every tab, then it tell me, a public IP exposure to the internet, any internet actually is there, number of port that's open, then number of security groups actually I do have. Then each security group, right? What are the firewalls that are security services that I have? How many DDoS plan? How many WAF plan? And what are the network security groups that I have? Okay. Then if I go further, then it can tell me, internal networking, how many NIC card, which are the only NIC card that I have deployed, and whether my internal also actually have a DDoS protection, which subnet is actually protected.
We have 10 minutes remaining.
Yeah.
It is just reminder.
Correct.
Thank you.
So we do have which one is actually is the protected, which is not protected, and also you have a PaaS service, route table, which route table actually having what route, all the detail that you will able to see in this workbook itself. These all freely available workbook. Okay, this all you can download from online. You can able to get this from our website itself. Okay, so you just need to deploy it and you can able to get it. Then the last part is actually is before we move on to the question. So the whole network that you see just now here is actually used deploy using infrastructure as a code. Okay, so basically I'm using Terraform. and I'm deploying the whole thing as a Terraform script. Okay, so the whole hub architecture that you see, the firewall and everything, the number of VM that you see here, all the VM is actually deployed using the infrastructure as a code. Okay, all of them actually is quite fast that you can able to deploy. You can able to anytime that you can remove, you can able to do that, right? So anyone want to have access to this code, anybody think that you want have access to this, you can let me know. You can ping me. You have my alias and everything. I'm keeping this right now in a private repo. I'm going to put this architecture and everything little bit tidy up. Then I will make it as public. All right, all the item that I talked about, all of them is actually available as a code. Anytime that you want to practice, you want to deploy, you can deploy it. It will deploy about 100+ resources in your subscription, and you can play around and you can understand the configuration, how we did and what we did, and you can able to take it further. So with this, I stop here. Then I will actually take some questions, and we can move on. Hope you find the session is useful.
Yes, Kajal, this very informative for us. Just one question: how to deploy these things into the workbook into the Azure monitor? Any specific way?
No, nothing. It's actually we have built actually a template. Okay, I'll show you the template. So there is actually is the you can go to this specific. I will post the link in the chat window. Okay. Also, I'll show you. So you can actually take this link and you can go to this specific workbook. Then there is a workbook here, Azure Firewall Monitor workbook. Okay, when you click here, then it actually take you to the deploy to Azure, click a button, then you log into your network. Okay, basically you just go to the network, whichever network that you want to, then you log into that, then the screen will come, then you just enter the detail, it's quickly deployed, right? So it's all of them templatized and everything. So single click, you can deploy all the templates.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. So this actually has all the script that you are asking for, that there's the firewall. Then also you want to deploy ARM-based template, all the template is there. You want to actually simulate certain thing, you can also simulate, and you want to do many things. All the rules are there, sample rules and everything. Okay. Any questions further?
Last 5 minutes, a minute. Yeah.
I mean, any question, anything that you want to ask me, please feel free to write. If not, then I will take on to the other session that actually I want to cover. But I set up, but I didn't want to cover it. But since I have 5 minutes, let me show you what actually I was talking about. Okay. See, another concept actually, I deploy another subscription, the same setup in another subscription. Okay. So the one differentiator that I did actually is here. I don't use VNET peering concept. Okay. So in this actually, I'm using the virtual network manager concept. Okay. So basically is I created a network group. Okay. Then I'm actually put all my group configuration inside here. Okay. So I'm calling these are the members of in my groups. Okay, so these are 2 VNet I want to add. If anything I want to automate also, I can also automate, create policy-based dynamic adding. Then I can say this is the tag that I have. This tag should have exist on this value, right? Then anything having this value, then do this action for me. So basically is what we are trying to say, anything that you have, automatically add this to my hub network. Okay. Then similarly, if I want to have a configuration, I want to have a certain security rule at a global level. I have, if you notice, right, I do have how many security group that I have. There are so many security groups that I have. I don't want to go and add the certain rules, like for example, Windows Update and Azure AD login, the Azure AD inbound, all of them, I want automatically added to my security group whenever is created. This all actually is managed by admin. This is called what we call admin rules. This is need to be centrally managed. Okay, so the spoke people can go and add, but this admin rule need to automatically insert into by specific thing, right? Then I can go here and start looking at my deploy configuration and what actually I did configuration, whether it's actually configured or not. Those details that I can see, right? So which are the configuration that I did and which are the subnet is start affected, all the details that I'm able to see, the view of that, right? These are the rules and these are the target groups that actually went in, right? I'm able to see all the details here. So this is a new feature that we released. This is a preview feature. And this is also another way to manage it centrally in your network manager. Sorry, in your network security group, you can manage it centrally, basically. Okay, that is what we are releasing as
well. Faisal, one question. What are the use cases we can use the virtual WAN? Can you?
Yeah, virtual WAN is as different. This is actually you have let's say I have a network security group here, okay, and this is actually I'm running on Windows VM, and this is my network security group, okay, and a guy went in and say that I don't want to have an outbound of internet Windows update, okay, my VM needed in Windows update. The guy went and go and had a rule and say that no Windows update is required. Then I'm bit vulnerable for myself, right? So because I do not have virtual WAN, I do not have, but I want to manage this. In that case, I'm actually managing my admin rule. My admin rule enforce, even though there is a deny rule here, my admin rule will take over and actually able to provide me the access.
Okay.
I think we need to stop here.
Thank you so much for everyone. And yeah, thank you so much for everyone. And I hope you had a good learning session.